male and 44% male. Now, these figures are different from area to area. In urban areas, the participation of female students is higher in number than in the rural areas. So, in some universities, there are female students are more than the male students, while in rural areas, the statistics are reversed. So, we can see that despite the effects, efforts of government of Pakistan, the ratio is not equal in male and female.
Which year?
As of 2016, 15-16. The ratio is the male are more than the female students. Now, the efficacy of this law, the government resolves to emancipation of the women in society is bringing result with growing enrollment of women in education institutions. The ratio of female students is very encouraging in the urban areas and gradually improving in the rural areas. Now, based on this last data that we had, now what are the issues that why it is not being implemented? The first issue is the cultural and political. They are both interlinked issues. In Pakistan, we are not as developed societies as the Western society or a socialist country like China. We have a lot of cultural, political issues that in certain areas people are not ready to send their girls to education institutions. Higher education is something very difficult even to the basic education institutions, like the primary school. So government has a very difficult situation in some areas even to convince the parents to send their children to the primary school for the basic education. So these are the cultural issues. We have some areas which are politically disturbed, where the schools are blown up by the insurgents, and the education institutions are very difficult to run. The political issues are interconnected with the cultural issues. There are certain parties or the group of people who are not in favor of education to women. So they have their political parties, so they do not encourage the population under their influence to go to the education institution. The economical. Now, the economic pattern of the society is there's a gap between have and have not. There are people who have enough money to send their children for education to education institutions abroad or to the higher educations and the best institutions in the country, and there are other people who do not have even money to send their children to the government schools where the education is free because they cannot even afford to spend on them for their transportation or other expenses. So the economical issues get another barrier which prevents them, the students to go to schools and higher education institutions. And it is more severe in the case of the female students. Then the administrative issues. The administrative issues relate to the issues where there are education institutions, but the government functionaries are unable to run them. There is inefficiency in the government. There are issues of logistics. If there is an education institution, there is a building, then there is no amenities. If there are amenities and the education institution, then there is no faculty. So if there is a faculty, then there is another problem. So there is a three-tier government system: local government, provincial government, and the federal government. So there are some provincial government which are very effective. There are the other provincial government which are not as effective. There are federal government which is very effective in some part of the country, and some part of the country it is not very effective. So these administrative issues are also part of this failure. And the last one is the access. In some of the areas, the educational institutions are not very near to the students, and especially to the female students. Female students are more handicapped to go to these schools if it is very far from their houses or from the villages or from their areas. So the more the near the education institution, the more safer for the female student to go to the school. So this is the last issue that we have found in the failure of the progression in the female education.
Thank you for good work, President. Very enlightened structure. The structure was very much clear. Thank you. So who will be next?
Okay, thank you.
अच्छा आपने रिकॉर्ड भी कर ली
रिकॉर्ड हो रहा है मैंने आपको रिकॉर्ड किया याद से क्या आधे में हो गया
मैंने स्टैमर सुनी
यूनिवर्सिटी को सही है
अब मुझे बताओ
लेफ्ट साइड पर भी करें पाकिस्तानी कौन सी पिटाई जाएगा काम की बात ना उसी पे excuse me you why don't you come here come here I need another
Yes, exactly. Just come.
yes
Come on.
it is in our वो यार छोड़ो
We will start. Thank you. Good afternoon. Our group has discussed this topic in very detail, and we have come up with some key points. Just like the women's rights has been discussed in Constitution of Pakistan 1973, there are several articles, just like Article 25A, Article 37A, Article 37B. They talk about equal access to higher education and also talk about access to education for all without any discrimination. There is National Education Policy, which particularly talks about women's rights and access to education for girls and promotion of girls, that is also being discussed in education policy. And there are special initiatives have been taken to promote girls' education, women education in Pakistan at higher level, at provincial level as well. And there are women universities across the country in different provinces, specific women universities, where women lead the universities, where women can easily go to in order to break the social barriers. For example, in some areas, they do not send girls to universities because there are men or there are men. So because they want that they have a separate classes for them as well. So there are women universities in Pakistan. As far as the implementations are concerned, yes, it has not been effectively implemented, the Constitution, because the Constitution talks about the access to higher education for all citizens without any discrimination. So that's why if it is implemented, everyone will be in higher education and other things. So one of the things that we consider makes a barrier for this implementation is the cultural and social hindrances in our society. That's the one, the biggest. And then the other is lack of financial and human resources. Because there are provinces, they cannot establish new universities that can ensure access to higher education for all. Because even if you take an example of Balochistan, it's a province of Pakistan. We do not have enough resources to open universities in each and every district so that they have access. Because Balochistan is a very far-flung areas. It's a 44% of the country, and its population is only 5%. So the population is quite scattered, and not everyone has access to the universities. And if the government intends to open universities, and they will be very difficult for them to come. So the human resource is also a very major problem. If you open universities, you don't have faculty. That is another problem that is creating problem to implement the constitutional obligations. And poverty is another problem. If I give example of Balochistan, more than 70% people live below the poverty line. The district I belong, the poverty is 97%. So this is what we say, that it's also a matter that women particularly cannot go and cannot get education because of poverty. And what we say that the way forward is to announce or initiate some special packages for the underdeveloped areas in Pakistan, so that to bring them at par with other provinces and other areas. Thank you.
So some have some questions.
Yes.
One question that she is coming for presenting her group.
If you have any question, I will go. Thank you.
Kind of one question.
Yes.
Because you talk about women universities.
Yes.
So it's okay for men to go to those women universities.
No.
Not as students.
Even not a faculty members. Unless the women university, if they have
Oh, ladies.
only
You will
For
be
the
only
part-time-
employed there as security guard because a woman can't be a security guard.
yes, some universities where there are no faculty they can borrow or they can work as a visiting faculty, and once they acquire the services of females, and then they will relinquish and they say that
Yes, in some universities, as per that friend.
Maximum institution, female institution, maximum staff are female, but some of them are also male staff.
Not more than 2%.
Yes,
You will see mostly, you know, mostly. I was just to be off the recording. Religion is portrayed because Pakistan is an Islamic country. Sometimes in the Western media, the religion is blamed for the girls not being educated, which is wrong. And even in our religion, almost 1500 years back, it was said that even because China was too far those days from the rest of the world, in our religious, the religious people used to say that you have to get educated, and for that, even if you have to go to China, that was said 1500 years back, you should go. So religion is never a barrier for, as the media projects it.
It's actually, because in China we also have some women colleges, but for women colleges, men could also be not just women colleges. Proposal in fact law around maybe I would say 10% to 10%. So the majority are still ladies, maybe 80%, sometimes 90%. That's why I ask this question for you, because it's difficult from Chinese context.
Yeah, someday there are.
इवन इंडिया में
Okay, next room. Thank you.
हिंदू यूनिवर्सिटी है बनारस की, जब वो बनी तो वो जब अंग्रेज ने परमिशन दी उसमें एक शर्त दी थी कि आपको दीगर रिलीजन्स को देने पड़े। तो बहुत से मुस्लिम मशहूर लीडर जो है बनारस की मुस्लिम हिंदू यूनिवर्सिटी पढ़ते हैं, अलीगढ़ मुस्लिम यूनिवर्सिटी अगर पढ़ती है तो वो भी दूसरे मजहब को लोगों को देती है। तो बाज़ ये माशरे में बराबरी लाने के लिए इसको पढ़ेंगे कैसे? छोटा है यार, इन्होंने इसको खुद काटा है।
अच्छा, एक साथ में ना करें। अच्छा सही है। मैडम
Actually, we believe on no any gender discrimination, so that's why we have.
But I understand that what was going on behind the scenes. Okay. Anyways, let's start our discussion. We have divided our topic into the different headings. First, I have taken it as women's rights in education generally. First of all, I discuss it like first of all in constitution, then national laws and regulations. Under Constitution of Pakistan 1973, Article 25 states that states about the gender equality, that there won't be any discrimination between men and women in every field of life. And for the protection of women, this article contains provision for the protection of women as well. And under Article 25A, it has been mentioned that there would be free and compulsory education for the women, for all of the people or the citizens of Pakistan up to the age of 16 years. This relevant provision reflects that this has been mentioned in the fundamental rights of Constitution of Pakistan, and it has been ensured by the Constitution, and means it has the constitutional backup. Secondly, on national level, we have different kinds of education institutions who are working under the special statutes, which are actually formulated and developed by the relevant government. And if they are working under the provincial government, then the provincial government is the custodian of the relevant statutes of those higher education institutions. We have named some of the higher education institutions which are specifically developed and made and established for the for ensuring the higher education for the women. For example, you all know that Fatma Jinnah Medical University Lahore, Fatma Jinnah Medical University University Rawalpindi, Women University Bannu, and Benazir Bhutto Women University KPK. Secondly, we have also mentioned that in order to ensure the higher education of the women, they have been protected by some other laws and regulations which are actually supporting them to ensure and to get higher education. For example, women harassment bill has been passed in 2010, and which contains particularly provisions regarding the protection of the women at workplaces. Means if they are working ladies or they are at higher education institutions, then they should be constitutionally and legally protected by the laws. Another women protection cells and the women harassment committees have been established and developed in each department level and each university level. You can see everywhere that the platform is there, where the issues related to the women harassment and the women protection they are dealing in. Next, these are this is the situation under constitution and under the laws which ensure the rights of the women. Then let's talk about the implementation of these regulations and this constitutional provision in Pakistan. These are the agencies which we have mentioned. The federal government, provincial governments, courts, districts, all departments, universities, line departments, they are responsible for ensuring the protection and ensuring the higher education for the women at par with the men. And we can see the implementation of these regulations and the laws which we have already mentioned. You come across different kinds of the cases related to the women. Whenever they feel any problem in getting their higher education, they can have access to the forums which are established by these governments, and they can even knock the door of the courts. And then issues or the problems or the barriers which we are facing in Pakistan regarding higher education of the women. First of all, as my colleague earlier mentioned, that it is cultural barrier. Our culture is such like it doesn't support the equal participation of the women to the education, because our society is not that open-minded that they can send their daughters to the institutions, those institutions where they are studying with the men, or means they have some kind of cultural barrier. Awareness is another issue, that our parents are mostly not that much educated that they think it fit to send their daughters to the higher education institutions. Then lack of preference or the priority from the government. This is one of the major hurdle which we feel that it's playing its very important role, and in not getting the women the position which they deserve. The government doesn't contain this issue as a priority, that they should ensure the presence or the existence of the women at the level where they should be like the other countries. So government and sometimes parents also don't support their female child to send to the school or the college or the university, and instead they will prefer to send their male child to the schools or the universities. That's why it's the matter of preferences. Lack of resources. Our government doesn't have that much resources that it should establish separate universities or institutions for ensuring the higher education of the women. Secondly, money on their female child, rather they would like to spend their funds for the male child. Incompatibility. Our higher education, because I had been a research student, my area was chemistry, so I feel that in higher education, when you go up to the post-graduation level, you will have to spend most of your years of study in research activities, and research activity is a very time-taking activity. Sometimes you have to wait for your reactions or your process to complete. It takes many days, and sometimes it takes off and on hours, and you can't imagine in Pakistan that a lady will be standing for completion of its research activity till night, and then she comes to the conclusion that it will be fine. So our research activities and our cultural activities are not that much compatible with each other. Now look at finalizing. We say that what we suggest we suggest for the promotion and progression of the female in higher education, participation in higher education. Then awareness should be grown up by the public in public through media or something like that. That they should know that how important is the higher education for the women as well. There is a dire need of more legislation where we find difficulties in facing different problems related to the women. We should have covered the gap of that problem and the solution, and through those legislations. And so I think that there is a dire need of more legislations for addressing every problem in the higher education sector. And the basic problem which we feel in Pakistan is the lack of enforcement. Means there are different laws which have been formulated by the government time and again, and it are being passed by the parliament in each state, but they are not being implemented properly. And there should be a proper implementation or enforcement force that should implement them, and they should give they should encourage the females to come up for the higher education. Thank you.
I have a question. Please specify. Where do you need when you said that you need to have more implementation? Please specify the very area in which you need enforcement, because you have the women protection. You have you've got the women have got all the rights, as you yourself said under Article 21, 25A. What particular area is where you were saying that you need certain legislation, and where our constitution is lacking in legislation?
Okay. I have told you time and again in my presentation that there are laws
Specific,
formulated by the government.
But specific.
I'll tell you, please be patient.
Specific.
Okay. Anyways, it's like that there are certain sectors and issues related to the women which are quite different than the men. They can't discuss their real and fictional stories with anyone openly. So, I don't think so that someone would harass me or someone would discourage me in my interview for any job, for my viva. Then I don't think so that I will knock the door of a court. I will not approach these platforms, these committees. I would think that I will get exposed and people will think that I am not a good lady. So I think there should be some kind of facilitation and some kind of that you should not be exposed by exposing your problem. Means females are not that much open that they should discuss and they will discuss their problems openly. And I don't think so that after passing this regulation, Women Protection and Harassment Cell Harassment Bill in 2010, till now we haven't seen any prominent case where females have knocked the door of the any forum or the committee under this constitution and have told them that this has happened to me and you should give me some kind of relief. So I think that there is a barrier. We should create such platforms which are the facilitations, not the other day media comes to me and asks me that what was happening and when you entered and when you, who spoke to you, and these things I think can harass the women more. Harass the women more rather than encouraging her.
Thank you, very good.
Thanks very much for your comments and also well thought presentation. Also, I like your structure. And well, final group.
Yes, final. I don't need a mic or anything. All my colleagues have explained the entire situation very clearly. So I don't need to have a chart or anything.
It is very necessary.
No, it's not. I'll explain it through your charts. Yes, everything is, you see, women have equal rights under Article 25A. You have women colleges right from primary level to the university level. We have special universities. You have special schools for, you have female institutions. So as such, rights for education and higher education and middle education are already guaranteed. First of all, this should be made very clear. Whatever else we were talking about and the issues which are there are only social and cultural. And that could only be resolved with more education. And education not to women only, but to males. That is the main issue. The more we are educated, not only for females, the more we are educated, the more those social and cultural barriers would be removed. As far as rights, and as you say, and the rights are given, the women have all the rights. They have this harassment bills and everything, which different people over here have mentioned over here. The point is that the more you educate, the more all the barriers would be solved. Thank you very much.
Your opinion, not your group.
Please, wait a minute, sir. Please.
I endorse that he said very well, and we have all our colleagues are they can sign resolution. The question was this, but they people are giving answers somewhere else. It was a question.